Hey guys, and welcome back to the Q&A. Unfortunately, I have returned from holiday. This is, I think we did 3 weeks without me, is that right?
Two.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, you did one and Ed did one?
And then Ed did one, yeah.
Okay. Anyways, introductions. We have Mod Rock.
Hello.
Mod Ghost.
Hello.
Myself, Mod Archie. Mod Aiza.
Oh.
Ed, Mod West. And we have Mod Maz on the keyboard grabbing questions from the chat, so please at Old School RS with any questions. Up until 5 minutes ago or so, I didn't actually think we'd have anybody with dev capabilities to answer questions, but we have Rock and we do have Maz, so this will be a much better Q&A. Yeah. Also, we have a live audience. Do you want to explain why we have a live audience? Should I do it? Do you want to do it?
No.
Go ahead.
We just have a live audience.
Okay. So we're doing.
It's just that at the moment.
Is that all I should say? Oh.
Ooh.
Ooh. Okay. Well. Okay. Make of that what you will.
If the live audience could clap.
Ah.
Proof.
Can they do the
Proof.
friends?
I'm
word
sorry,
as well?
people watching from not within the studio. That's very awkward. Anyways. Obsidian asks, can we have canoes in Zaya, please?
Would they use them though? Do you use canoes now? Aside from the one into the wilderness, because that one actually is useful. But like,
I think they would probably get use from.
because most of the rivers in Hesidius and
They already
mostly
have
teleports.
minecarts anyway, don't they?
Yeah, the
They're
minecart.
minecarts and all sorts of teleports. So just canoes, it's going to oversaturate it. May as well have lodestones.
Whoa! Good answer.
Feisty.
Mod Ghost
Yes.
is dropping in the knowledge bombs now. We're doing research.
Well done. All right.
Check me.
How about, I mean, maybe this is a good time to just quickly, briefly talk about something that we've been discussing. I mentioned it last Q&A, but you've been working on a few different reworks.
Oh yeah.
And one of them being a particular area within Zaya, which obviously we're not ready to showcase just yet, but do you have any plans in terms of maybe canoes aren't as necessary?
Yeah, I'd say wait until that comes out. Yeah, you won't need canoes after that. Currently, there's quite a lot of teleports in Hesidius anyway, so it seems sort of unnecessary, personally. But, prove me wrong. Make a picture. Put it on Reddit. Why not?
What's the upvote minimum for your attention? 5,000?
7.
I mean, that's quite high. No, I'd probably just 1K.
1K?
1K upvotes?
Oh, that's pretty easy. All right. He's cheap. Will Fishing Trawler ever get a rework? I've got a question about that in here. I guess we'll get through that one now. That's coming from the chat, by the way.
Reworked how?
Great question.
I think the only thing that generally needs to be reworked, if anything, is probably the drop rate of the angler outfit.
Okay.
The fact that it takes, 10 to 12 minutes to do one boat, and then you've got a 1 in 8 chance of getting a piece of this outfit.
Yeah.
Some people easily go like a good 100 or so trawlers without getting the full set.
I've got a better question more relevant to that. It goes a bit more in detail. Somewhere along the lines here, so we'll actually get back to that one.
I'd love to rework the code.
Oh, do you know what? It is actually the second question on my list. It's right here. So it follows up and says, currently at the start of the game, you must click leaks with perfect ticks to maintain activity bar. If you have an unstable internet connection, you risk being kicked out and forced to wait the entire duration to try again. This is unfair for Eastern European players as the world is hosted on a US server. You get the idea. He proposes that all players start with 50% activity bar rather than 25, as it is now, making the activity bar drain slightly faster.
You're not forced to do trawler on the specific world. It's just a themed world. So if we wanted to, we could just theme a world in Germany as fishing trawler, and anyone who's in Europe that wants to do trawler can go there instead for a better ping.
How many people do you need to do trawler?
1.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
you can solo it.
Yeah. Okay. Is it more difficult solo or is it the same?
It's slightly more difficult because you have to keep running up and down to use your rope to repair the nets, but
Nobody does it in other worlds.
that's because there's no
Yeah.
other themed worlds.
Okay,
Is
so
You can easily theme a world, it's not a problem.
that would be a
We could
very,
try
very
that.
easy fix. We could certainly try that first.
If we wanted to, we could probably keep it in the rotation of worlds that we have, where we just change a theme, and every couple of weeks we switch between a themed world in the Europe and one in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it's literally just changing 2 small things and when we do our update.
Sounds good. Agile says, can Raids 2 try to revive some old or dead content, similar to how Crumble and Dead Spell was given a niche use with Vorkath? Maybe we could see use for such items as the Rod of Ivandis or Silver Bolts, especially within the raid. So
Maybe not silver bolts. I don't think they're the most like expensive or high tier of gear, but I'm sure that there will be pieces of equipment, weapons, spells that aren't used everywhere else that might find use within the theatre.
We also have the bracelet, which allows regular weapons to do a lot more damage versus vampires. So,
panic buy useless items.
I'd
never
love to
know.
do something like take silver bolts and have to add something onto them in order to use them in Raids 2, for example, to give them, one, a use, and two, it makes sense because vampires, silver, etc.
That would essentially make them the mandatory bolt, though. You would
Maybe.
be at a complete disadvantage going with anything else. So they'd have to be relatively expensive.
Stick
That could work,
it
though.
on them.
Yeah. As far as mechanics go, there are many new mechanics. Obviously not going to go into any detail, but so much of it is new and fresh and unlike any other content we've ever had in Old School. So I don't think there's going to be a lack of new things. And as far as revitalizing dead content, that could go any direction. I mean, maces come up occasionally. It's like saying make the rune and the dragon mace better and everything else. There's so much to that. I wonder where we should actually start, or if we should even bother with that, personally.
Yeah, it's like, isn't it okay for some content to be dead?
It's like halberds. Like, the list goes on. There is a big list of things that are not the meta, and occasionally there is support to bring one of those things off that list up to being top tier. But again, if we bring everything to being top tier, then that's no fun. Anyways, moving on. Moose says, can we please get minor tweaks to minigames, such as Clan Wars, add Lumbridge Castle and Falador Park maps to the map selection?
That's not a minor tweak.
That's not minor, Matt says? Are you mic'd up?
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends entirely on the minigame and how it's coded, but yeah, what some people think is minor generally isn't. But, you know, Ash can work miracles.
Are you volunteering?
I'm not
Volunteering
volunteering Ash, no.
Yeah.
I would like to have dedicated time where we look at mini games and prioritise dev time to doing the changes that we often will say, you know, we want to fit that in as part of qual, but it's a bit bigger than a qual job. I think that would be really good, and it's a question of where does that sit in terms of priorities. But I think it's something that we should definitely look at, whether that be the next qual focus. You know, I think the last one we did mini games and other week, and the majority of it was other changes, because the mini game changes that wanted doing were big, quite drastic content changes that would need balancing and extra dev. So
There's two more ideas on this list. I don't think these are as big in comparison. That is, make the bucket of water in Castle Wars have infinite uses to help better combat tinderbox barricade spam. I mean, that is a legitimate tactic.
Well, if you
And
think about it, Tinderbox is infinite use. Why can't the bucket be? I mean, I know it doesn't make logical sense, but
because there is, well, I'm not going to answer that. I mean, maybe they want a watering can. I don't know.
oh dear.
I wonder about changing the Castle Wars meta. This seems like a very small thing to me, but I'm certain
Yeah,
there are
that-
some
that-
players
that
right
is
now
probably
thinking,
doable, yeah.
don't change it.
I think Castle Wars is like an ecosystem, isn't it? Like the people that play it want it to be a very specific way, and
Yeah.
any small alteration you make to it without any just cause is not really a good idea.
Yep, well put. And the last one was last man standing. Remove the player count requirement for casual matches. That one we've said we'd like. We would like to do that. I have no idea how big of a change that is, but that one is actually a really good idea.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
that,
cool.
from what I remember, I think that's a pretty substantial change, because you'd have to make sure that like the maps and all the spawn locations are fair in every scenario of the amount of players you can have.
I think they'd have to be understood that they.
Yeah,
would
so what if
likely
we
be
just didn't?
unfair.
Well,
Like, if they just wanted a place to fight.
yeah,
Yeah.
just to go. I mean, let's face it, it's not going to be the most thriving piece of content regardless anyway. So if a small change accommodates the few people that want to do it, then why not? And
Well,
in
it's
addition
casual.
to that, actually, I quite like the thought of. I think I mentioned it. There you go. Look, I can't speak again. I think I mentioned it the other week internally. Is like, let's do another LMS high stakes weekend, and let's just disable prayer so that prayer is not available, and just see what happens. You know.
So the problem with last man standing, and this idea is for casual, which it isn't competitive well, and doesn't really we don't need to bother about the balancing. But last man standing, if we remove prayer, we're adding or even removing even more skill from it. It's essentially we're making it more RNG based. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. It's just, I guess, how much RNG is okay for, for something that is so
I don't think it's
competitive.
necessarily a good or a bad. I don't know if it's a good or a bad idea. I just thought, well, it can't be that hard to just say no prayer allowed and just see what it goes like for a weekend, and then next update, change it back.
I'm not opposed to it at all. All right. Yak says, can we get rid of spec tabbing in PvP by adding a small delay before you can teleport out of a fight right after an attack?
Does anyone do
Technically,
PvP?
I think you probably could. I think it would feel horrible.
That's pretty much what I was thinking in my head. Not
So-
knowing if it was possible, what I thought it would be, but imagine that. Like, why can't you? It's similar to, I guess, why can't you release chin chompers? It's like, why would you just not be able to teleport? It's like,
I don't think that'll necessarily save the problem either, because what you could do with people in Bounty Hunter World, they'll just walk one square, spec, and then walk out again. So you're not necessarily
Well,
solving the problem, you're
that's
just modifying it.
Not that many people PK right on the border of Bounty Hunter. In
Well, you've got
PvP worlds, by
in Farron.
Grand Exchange, that's sure. But if you're hanging around that area, you can kind of expect that. I'd actually like to straw pull this one if possible, because it's relatively controversial. I don't know how many PvPers we have in the chat, but essentially we're talking about if you're in a fight with somebody, a common tactic is to use the special attacks almost immediately, and then teleport away with no risk to yourself, obviously. So with this, if you used your special attacks or went in for that final last hit, you would have to wait a certain duration of time, maybe 1 to 2 seconds, before you could teleport out.
What about if you couldn't use your special attack in PvP unless you'd been in combat for X amount of time? So then you couldn't dump them out all at the beginning.
well, if you
No,
got like a really
definitely
lucky
not.
first hit in your fight, but you couldn't spec because you needed an extra 3 seconds of combat, that would.
Benefits and weaknesses to
I don't think
anything we can suggest.
I don't think we want to completely eliminate rushing. I think that's like
Oh, have you got a secret account you've not been telling us about?
no, I think it's just a fundamental like part of PvP that has been embedded into the RuneScape culture forever.
Sounds like you shouldn't change anything about it with
Yeah.
Well, the great thing with rushing is it brings anti-rushers, and those are the best scenarios to see happen when someone goes in and rush and they drop down the Venge anti-spec, and it's like,
I feel
So
like
it's like Castle Wars, it has its own ecosystem.
loads of people are saying yes.
But loads of people are saying no.
Yeah, that's right.
Fairly
Okay. So we've straw pulled in a PvP situation, should there be a delay between spec and teleport? 55% saying yes, 45 saying no, and you've said haha, so there's the chat. That says more than enough. That's exactly what I think I
That
would have
was
expected.
Like pure devil's advocate, we all knew what that was going to be. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. Let's go grab some from the chat then. If I made it into the beta, can I play on all of my accounts?
no,
No.
just the account that you signed up for.
Similarly, if you've made it into the beta but decide you don't want to play in the beta and you maybe try to give it to a friend, you can't do that. So don't do that.
Yeah. Likewise, if someone offers you the beta and you don't have a message in your message center, then you are not invited to the beta. So don't fall for it.
When do you lads plan to open the mobile beta to all Android users?
So from what I know and what I can say, it's a case of we'll be starting with what we've got and then basically collecting information and see how we go and then working on feedback and things like that. I don't know if there is a very specific time frame, and I'd be very hesitant to give one.
I think Mod John C touched on it last Q&A very briefly when he spoke about the Android Always On beta, which goes live this Thursday. People that have been invited, by the way, you would have had a message sent to you yesterday to your message centre. Make sure you check it. You'll also get an email and extra information come through that way. But I think it was see how this one goes, and then we obviously have plans to eventually move on to an open beta, but no dates yet.
This one is classed as an always-on closed beta, and basically what that means is that there is no end to it, essentially. So whenever we update the game and the client needs updating, basically we will upload a new build. And the theory is that as soon as the update rolls out, the new build will be ready and you can download it and continue immediately after the update.
And we'll be scaling up every week, says the old school channel. So there you go. There's that. Right. if there is a future Clue Scroll update, any chance we could see the return of the Celtic rune knot puzzles? Or Celtic?
I'd love these.
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite things to do, is puzzles like these.
Cool.
Did you write this question?
No? Honest.
That'd be cool to see him.
I'd like to see more puzzles, but I would not like to see puzzles that have already been done.
Fair enough.
It's fair.
It's because it's nothing new.
Wow, this is driving spam in the chat.
I guess a lot of people struggled with them. Because
You can, but they're really
What
simple
would-
to brute force as well.
Would they prefer this or Crack the Clue 2? Because I see Mod Matt K in the chat.
Oh dear.
I was going to say, it's Paul been sat in the chat going, where's my Crack the Clue 2 every 5 minutes?
I wonder, I think there's certainly scope for more puzzles.
Loads of people are saying crack.
Yeah. It's odd. I think our community really enjoyed doing these puzzles.
Or both, Matt K says. Do both.
Ooh. Okay.
I know Mod Kieran keeps talking on about Clue Scroll expansions. He likes, adding in little bits here or there and ornament kits, and I think that they're cool as well. They're nice things to do, and I think if we can add more clue spots, new clue rewards, and then a new clue challenge, sounds pretty.
How many more clue spots like the Dragon's Eye can we implement?
The problem really is like the rewards. We will struggle to think of like a dozen unique good ideas for cosmetics or whatever they might be that we add to another Clue Scroll drop table.
Is there anything we haven't given an ornament kit from Dragon yet?
I
What we
actually
could
have a
do-
question asking for the Dragon Warhammer.
We could add like a
Okay.
blonde wig and then a recoloured pet rock that was slightly blue. That'd be quite cool cosmetics for absolutely no personal reason.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know where.
I
it's
don't know
going
what you're
with
talking
I was
about. What are you
thinking like
talking
a
about?
blonde wig and then a
that.
blue
Oh, he wants
pet
to.
rock.
He wants to dress up as Goku and
Yeah, yeah. Moving on.
Yeah. We're not doing that.
Okay. We have the Dragon Medhelm. We have the Dragon Warhammer. We have the Dragon Halberd. We have the Dragon Mace. We have the Dragon Longsword. There's a handful. Do they need a gold trim?
There you go. We've just done a dozen. You said we'd have a problem finding it. It's sorted. Let's go.
I want to play Chris Archie names every dragon item in
Dragon
the game.
Cane. Think of that one.
I'm sort of annoyed that each one has their own unique ornament kit because there's probably more dragon full helm ornament kits than
Ooh.
Then you have to think about wherever you use them in a clue and a stash unit, and then people going, do we have the original one? Why can't we use the ornament kit version? And it is a compound thing.
Somebody just said something in the chat. I'm just going to say it for the sake of seeing how people react. Twisted Bow Ornament Kit. As an artist, how do you feel about that?
I think it'd be nice to update things with ornament kits, but what we mustn't do is go down the route of completely changing their appearance, because then people would be like, I don't really recognise that item anymore, which I think especially is key in PvP. If you've got something
Yeah.
like a powerful weapon like that, you don't want it to look drastically different.
I think
So
I would trust
what do
you to...
reckon?
You could put just a tiny bit of a spin on it.
Make it a big banana.
a spinny twisted bow.
Yeah.
You could do
Like I don't know.
You know how it's kind of like on green? You could just turn it to like maybe give it a variation for the other two crystals that you see in raids or something like that. So just give it a slight.
I mean,
colour
there is
variation.
recolours of dark bow. I
Mhm.
guess, yeah,
I think reed colours are
if they
cool.
want it.
You were sold. I can see it.
Generally, when people look at stuff, it's worse. Okay, if the Slayer helm to recolor it all the time, they'll check out the silhouette first, then they'll break it down into shapes when they look at things, and then colour will be one of the last things they really recognise something by.
Okay.
So you're okay doing like colour upgrades. As soon as you change something silhouette, then you've got problems.
Yeah.
There was, a few months ago, someone asked if I could make it so the arrow shot from the twisted bow looked different.
I was just going to ask that. The same as the crystal bow.
Yeah, and I mean that could change colour as well, but
Hey,
I still haven't got around to doing that.
could
yet.
you imagine like custom projectiles as like a clue scroll update? So you actually shoot something that looks really cool from whatever weapon you're carrying.
I mean that could go into the
There
area
was
of being
something
confusing,
in
not
RuneScape
knowing what
where-
you're actually attacking them with.
So they can see the weapon. They can't.
Yeah,
There was something in RuneScape
Yeah, that's
where you
true.
could get, and it would change what was coming out of your cannon,
Mm-hmm. Oh, what?
but it would turn it to like cabbages and flower pots and weird things like that.
I
think
prefer
that's
Christmas
okay.
puddings.
Yeah.
We did do the
um,
Christmas
cool.
puddings.
Let's straw pull this
Human
one
heads.
just for the sake, so then we can move on to the next question. And that is asking if they would like a twisted bow ornament kit.
Okay, there is
Whether
a
that's-
valid ornament kits thing from the chat that I pulled out there.
Ornament kits reduce item loss risk. You always rant about item sinks, yet ornament kits prevent gold/items being lost.
Because it makes them untradeable.
Mm-hmm.
So in PVM death, they'll be kept.
Okay.
We could always make them split on a PVM death before, and then both items drop to the floor.
Can you dismantle them yourself normally?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems like the best.
They would both drop, and it means you'd have to pick like both of them up before other things to put them together.
It's not a
Pick
bad
other
point.
things up if you had a full inventory and stuff.
So we'll get a straw poll in the chat for you guys momentarily. There it is. We'll move on to the next question. Okay, Fever says, the new Rev Uniques dev blog was supposed to be out around late March. Any updates?
Yep, same as before. It's ready. I'm just not ready to collate the feedback that will inevitably come from it. And we don't have the dev resource to dedicate to it just yet. So it's likely that I'll try to get the blog out before the Theatre of Blood, but development won't happen until after Theatre of Blood releases, which we all know now is the 7th of June. So maybe the blog will come out beforehand with like the stipulation of there's no set date of when the poll will go live.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might just be that we hold off until we know that we can say this is when we'll be looking to dev it.
It's very much a case of, I think, if we were to put out a dev blog, it doesn't actually stop the situation of people going, well, where is it? Where is it?
Yeah, that will be the
If
next
anything,
thing.
it'll probably heighten it because
Yeah.
we're showing exactly what we want.
Exactly, and it's
Yeah.
you know it's not that I don't want to release it. I would love to be able to release it and go through all of the feedback, but with what's going on at the moment, I just don't have the time. And as much as that sounds like mod lazy, it does unfortunately take time to go through all the different comments on Reddit and on Twitter and on the forums and things that people have saying on Twitch and in game and trying to collate all of that. If that's not done properly, then we could be looking at a bad poll going through, and I'd rather not that. If we can avoid it, like, why not? So pretty much that's it.
You've got a really tough crowd to convince, but I believe you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, they can't force me to put it out. So
Ooh. Okay, moving on. UIM says, would you please consider changing the magic trees in the Myths Guild to teak or mahogany? There are so many places to cut magic trees, including the Woodcutting Guild, which gives an invisible boost. There are not, however, many places to cut teak or mahogany trees that are located decently to a bank. I believe being locked behind a Grandmaster quest would justify their proximity to the bank.
If you grow your own on Fossil Island, they're pretty close to a bank.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Does that mean we shouldn't do this?
I'm just trying to think if there's anything thematically in the area for teak trees in Feldeep Hills.
Why did we put magics in the Myths Guild? Was it an aesthetic reason, or
It was on the poll, I think, so I mapped them down.
oh, okay.
yeah, I think we
Because
said
it's
there'll be a
just-
few
We
magic
polled,
trees.
we
I think
polled
it's
what
because
would be in the guild.
They're magic and they're sort of quite high level, so it just made sense to put them in there. Because there's some high level rocks in the dungeon, so
That's enough for me.
seems
Okay.
thematic.
Should we get through a couple more questions, then send you over for the sneak peek?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right, we do have a straw poll. Twisted Bow Ornament Kit, that's at 60% yes. That's not going anywhere anytime soon.
You don't have to do that now. Good.
All right. Next question. Tommy says, what else would you like to do to incentivize PvP activity?
Oh, there's
As much
loads of
as we
different
could.
things. Yeah.
So-
I think you probably say it yourself and know more, but the main thing is that we announced the Bounty Hunter rework at RuneFest, which obviously we will do and we want to do. But as you know, we have Theatre of Blood coming out first, and there's another quite cool update that this is going to be typical IESA comment right now. I can't tell you anything about, but believe
Why'd you
me,
even say anything?
it's
Unbelievable.
cool.
Hype machine.
Okay, so I'll recap the Bounty Hunter thing real quick. So this is something that I announced at RuneFest late last year, and that was essentially taking Slayer targets and putting them on people in the wilderness through Bounty Hunter. So you would talk to a Slayer Master, it would look at your account, your stats, and then it would say, oh, I see you can use, maybe you've got mid-90s. It would say, go get your next kill with a set of Daroks, or whatever it might be. It would essentially set you these tasks, and you don't have to get kills with them, just if you wanted to follow through with these kind of PvP-like tasks, you would get a better reward. And that's it. So all that would do is add some variety. Instead, right now, you walk out in the wilderness and you see the same people using the same exact gear nonstop all the time. This would add a little bit of variety. You'd see people using slightly different weaponry or gear, and in turn having a very slight boost because of it. Nothing competitive with best experience or money-making methods, but a little bit of variety essentially. So that was that thought.
And a whole host of new rewards that would obviously be
Yes.
PvP orientated as well. So
That was one of the bigger things for me is there's nothing in the game to represent your skill in PvP. We obviously have so much for PvM. We have stuff for skilling, skill capes, pets, whatever it might be. There's nothing in game for PvP. There's nothing as an armor set or a cosmetic cape or
The hats.
no pets, obviously. Nobody uses the hats.
What?
They don't really do anything. They have nothing to show your actual skill level in PvP.
Why don't people use the hats?
The bounty hunter hats.
Yeah.
It's probably because they're not best in slot, are they?
No, they don't do anything, and they don't really represent true PvP skill. I think they're pretty easy to get.
Yeah, you
And the
can
fact that you can buy
Yeah.
them emblems.
They're not
think-
tiered either.
I guess it's difficult though when you talk about PvP skill and how do you show PvP skill in the PK system we have at the moment, because well you can just farm KD.
Well, it's the same thing with a pet. So you
Yeah.
can literally just do skilling. You can chop a tree however many hours you want, and you'll get a pet
true.
eventually.
The hat's right. So
Yeah.
the more kills you get, the bigger the hat gets.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Eventually, it's so huge. It's the height of your player on top of your head.
Okay.
That could be a new reward.
I thought you meant wide as opposed to tall. So you'd
Both.
I was going with
Both.
as well. Yeah.
You'd walk out into the wilderness and cover up half of it. with your
Eventually,
hat.
it just falls straight on top of you. You're like a traffic cone.
You are just a walking hat.
around, yeah.
Wow.
If they would like
yeah.
that, we'd have to disable animations.
It'd be great though. It'd be
Having
fine.
done something similar in the Warriors Guild with the balancing of the barrels, that can cause some interesting graphical problems.
There's not an original idea on the planet, is there?
Okay. Moving on. We'll do one more, then we'll send you over. Okay. Raul says, "What was your most exciting project to work on, or maybe one that you haven't worked on yet this year?" Taking answers from all mods. You start?
I guess the Theatre of Blood has
Yeah.
been quite interesting. I don't know, trying to think this year. I've not really been working on much. Like large scale projects.
Doesn't have to be large.
I think it would be Theatre of Blood, closely followed by Dragon Slayer 2.
Are we counting that as this year?
Came out
this
this
year.
year.
It's like came
Well,
out this year, right? It was a
I mean,
release.
I did
Also, one answer.
But the other one, honestly, is the one that I can't talk about. I'm just going to keep pushing it now. Like, can't talk about it, but that is by far the most. I'm looking forward to working on that one the most.
Mine is also the one that you can't talk about.
Yep.
Yep. Go ahead.
I want to know what's one that you can't.
I
talk
think
tell
I,
you about
I
it.
think I know what it
Yeah,
is,
loop.
but
Okay.
We'll talk afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Mine's Theatre of Blood, so I don't think there's any shame in saying that.
Yep.
It's fine. It's going to be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait. It goes out on June the 7th as well.
Yeah.
You need to keep plugging that day, June the 7th.
15th of Pentember.
That's right. Whatever he said.
That's actually a new one to me because that was announced in my absence. I was on holiday, so there you go.
For me, this year it probably has to be Dead Man with the changes that we made to the finale, and
Yeah.
the final 128. I'm being quite involved in that, and that's what I've enjoyed this year so far.
Fair enough. Right. Do you want to go over there
Yeah. Sure.
and set yourself up for the sneak peek of the week? We'll do one more question in the meantime. So here we are. Waldian says, "Why has the changes to the Knights have already been pushed after Raids 2? Why give players the opportunity to abuse the content before you fix it?"
Interesting.
I would be interested to see the stats and see if people have increased.
Oh, they did.
Oh, they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
talked about it before and how much they'd increased by.
We've
and then
had that info from Lottie.
That's when Mod Kieran came back with a suggestion of let's just delete content, and then everyone will want to do it up until the point it gets deleted. But I mean, the bottom line is there's a lot of feedback that we've had to go through to make sure that the changes that we want to make are the right changes. We've not had the chance to bring that back to you guys yet because we're still going through at our end. Believe that we're nearly finished, and then once we have that, once we've sent it over to you guys to review, make sure that you're happy with what we're proposing as a revised version, then it will get implemented. We're just not at that point. And again, we have a lot of dev tied up with the really cool projects that we're working on that obviously a lot more people are going to be looking forward to than changing up RD Nights. So,
Yeah.
and it's not like, you know, It's not like it's the worst thing in the game. At the end of the day, RD Knights have been around for a very long time, and methods have been around for a long time too. So whilst we know that it's an issue and it's something that we want to look at, hence why we addressed it, it's not like it's the most pressing topic of utmost urgency that we have to fix tomorrow. That's how I see it anyway.
Fair enough. All right, Mod Ghost looks ready. So let's go ahead and throw things over for the sneak peek of the week.
Hey, yeah. Cool. So this is Seg. You've probably seen him from the design streams if you watched them the other week. This is a revised version of the war cannon that I did on that stream. It's finally been finished. You can see that when his feet come forward now, they're very grounded. They plant and they stay there on the ground for a long period of time until they move forward very quickly. This gives him a sense of weight. So that's what you're seeing there. If I just rotate around, it's very cool. So as well as this, I've also updated another one of the typical sort of Dark Beast animations that you'd see, and that's its melee attack. So I'm just going to close this walk animation down. You can see lots of scary stuff on the screen there, but don't worry, that will soon put itself in order when I open this next animation. Right, so the Dark Beast has this lunge where he comes forwards and attacks you normally. So you can really see on this one, it looks very aggressive. The way I've managed to make that look more aggressive is if I just turn on the skeleton just here and turn on the scale, you can see I've actually managed to adjust the horns on the front just here by slimming them down, as well as, if I can just find the right transform, there we go, sort of pulling them out as well. So you can see in this first frame just here, they're relatively short, and then I lengthen them out here to a really drastic proportion, much more than you'd normally see them. And as the animation comes back down, you see they return to a normal size. So if we play this animation all the way through, you can see it appears to have much more power than it would otherwise have. We've even got his little back foot lift that the original does there at the back as well. And another good thing about this too is instead of him lifting his head just directly up, you can see he actually pulls his head in here at an angle and actually tucks it under his armpit and then comes out at an angle as well. And that just makes it appear to have more of a reach than it would if it was simply going backwards and forwards. So there's just a greater range of movement. And just for a little finishing touch as well, when dogs sort of get aggressive and get their back up, they have their heckles on their back. So I actually put some spikes on his back as well to give that appearance too, which you can see briefly during the animation. Okay, I'm not going to show too much more with that guy, so we're just going to close him down. And then we'll move on to Lady Verzig. Okay. And we'll switch that on. Okay, so this is her idle pose at the moment. Now, a lot of people said we're a bit unsure of what the contraption was above her, and a lot of people said that her wings were too small, so let me fill you in on this character's profile. So basically, Lady Verzig fought in the God Wars. She was a very powerful warrioress, and then once the God Wars were over, she was given some lands by the people that she was working for in the God Wars. She decided not to really do much. She had lots of serfs around her all the time, just feeding her, giving her absolutely everything she wanted. So she got very large and immobile. Now, in order to make her sort of still feel like she could fly and not sort of fly off the handle, they decided to build this hoist around her to sort of give the illusion that she could fly. Vampires can't see their own reflection, so in her mind, she thinks she's still this beautiful warrioress, but really, she's this immobile sort of shadow of her former self. So I will show you some other cool animations that she's got, and also go through a breakdown with you too. Right, so this is her magic attack, and you can see what I do here is I actually stretch parts of the model to give you a sense of momentum as she charges up, and then I'll hold these frames for slightly longer than the rest, and you can see how she stretches when she comes down, again to give you a sense of momentum. And these frames, when she actually goes into motion, are over a lot faster than the ones where she actually stays up. So if I play that animation all the way through, you really get a sense of power when she releases that attack. And to show you how we can play with that a bit more as well, if I just move across these frames,
and basically shorten these ones where she really goes up and lengthen these ones where she stays in the air really drastically. You can see a bit more how we can actually play with that. So you can pretty much increase the power behind an attack just by punctuating your animations in this way. That's what we call it in the industry, punctuation. So it's almost like putting in the full stops and the commas to give you breaks and then explosive movements. And as well as that, you also need to balance the energy in your animation as well. So when she goes up, you need to give a sense of energy being charged and then holding, and then energy being released. And then you get energy dissipation at the end as well. So you can see those principles in play just there. Another cool touch that I thought I'd do as well is she's got this electric discharge that goes back up her chains once the animation's finished as well. So that's very cool. As well as that, I'll just quickly show you her melee attack as well. So this one's kind of comical. I wanted to make this character very fun and entertaining and not too serious at points. So again, you can see the stretching there when she comes into this move. And then she does the splits and then comes straight down onto you. So again, you can see the charge just there when she comes up. So we hold there to make it feel like there's an energy build-up, and then go straight down just with 2 quick frames for the energy release. We hold again while she's on the floor, and then we get the dissipation just there. So she comes back up. So I'll just play that through a few times. And you can even see as well on the back what I've done with her outfit. I actually slim her robes down, give you a sense that they're being left behind because she's moving up at such a great velocity, so they don't actually behave physically like fabric. It's more of a way of me tricking the viewer's eye into thinking that she's moving at whatever speed I want you to feel she's moving at. So you can see you get that sense, almost like on the old Warner Brothers cartoons where a character would go running off and their eyeballs would be left behind and then they'd follow them later. And anything beyond this point would be such a spoiler that I just have to stop right there. But if you tune in on next week's Dev Q&A, we'll have more of this stuff for you. So enjoy.
Well done. I love how unique this boss is. This is like, it's rare that we get to say, this is that's unlike anything we have in the entire game.
Sorry, I'll get my mic on quick.
Yeah. Anyways.
No, anyways, let me keep talking.
Okay.
It's quite a big. Is it quite a complex model in terms of the amount of polys you use? Because it's quite.
Right, so
There's a lot to it.
all of those models that you've seen for Verzig use the max, and they use the max number of transforms and the max number of labels as well,
And
so everything's pushed to the max.
So when this stuff happens, we've had problems in the past with players using something maybe like Ruby Bolt specs.
Got it covered, so we've already tested that on it to make sure that definitely doesn't happen. So there's like a cap you have for the actual NPC itself, then you get this additional buffer on top for anything else that's used. So that's why I never use proj anims. For the spells on my characters, when I closed Certezeg's animation down, you saw all these extra models stacked on top of it. So I always build all the spells into the model, so that's why the models have such a high poly count with the newer models that I've been making for Verzig, because she's got her lightning built into her, she's got these little glowing spheres, she's got the glow on the floor, she's sometimes got a throne built into her and stuff like that, so everything's just self-contained. It's also a lot easier for the developer, to just run one animation on it instead of plugging in lots of it, like additional animations and models.
Right.
Plus render order.
Yeah, there's a render order thing. Generally, the proj anim will connect with the player, so we don't have, with the model, so we won't have to worry about render order. I found that out about a year ago. So the whole time.
I've seen some spot anims that play on characters that sort of look like they're just mismatched. It might just be the render or the actual spot anim's wrong then.
Yeah, so that the person didn't actually take into consideration the model that it'd be used on.
Okay. That makes sense.
Especially if it's repurposed from an NPC and it wasn't originally meant for a player or something like that. So,
out of all the bosses in Theatre of Blood, is Verzig your favorite?
the thing that I've done with all the bosses is try to make it so they've all got a very distinctive silhouette. So when you see them, you definitely know who it is straight away. They've all got their own characters and lore that Ed's written up as well. and Kieran's made, and you've contributed to it as well. So I've really tried to draw from that. So hopefully they'll all feel like they fill a particular criteria of this narrative that runs through it. So I can't really say there's a particular favourite. I've tried to give them all the same.
Are they like your children? You're scared to pick one that's your favorite?
That's a bit weird
Okay.
to say that my children. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah.
I think Versus my favorite. I'll say that.
Cool.
I don't care what the other ones think. All right. Alice says, what's your opinion on the Raids 2 Sanguine SD staff? Don't you think it's a boring concept of basically being a trident which can heal sometimes? What would you like to change about it? That is the question that we would ask you. What would you like to change about it?
Hasn't it
Yeah.
already passed the poll as well?
It did pass the
Yeah,
poll.
pass the poll.
So we don't typically pull things and then change them afterwards. In fact, we don't do that. And I'm not trying to be sassy or anything. that comes a little edgy. I'm just saying, like, there's not much we can say we would have changed
Yeah, no, I mean,
for it. Otherwise, we would have offered that.
there was a lot of comments when it was first pitched of people saying, very similar. I mean, when you look at it, yeah, it's a trident that can heal, and I think that's pretty much what we were going for with it, because that's what it is, and it seems like people wanted that as well. We know that it's not the absolute best staff in the game. It's not going to be used by everyone everywhere, but it does have its uses, and people have already started speculating over that, and I think that's fine, because you don't want to bring out Theatre of Blood and have 4 twisted bows, because what happens in the next thing that we bring out, it's like, okay, cool, now we've got to bring out 5 twisted bows. So yeah,
Well.
it's like it would be a different story, however, if the staff had absolutely no use case. But with the tweaks that we made following Tournament World testing feedback, it definitely does have some. Maybe they've just not been thought about fully yet, but there are certainly uses for it. It won't be used everywhere, but I personally think that's absolutely fine.
And worth noting, something that I've talked about a little bit. Yes, we have announced this. And the people attending, we have a player visit / content creator visit happening next week. That is the 17th and 18th. We'll have many players in the office to help play test a lot of this stuff, including the staff. So if these guys, who are obvious experts at the game, as we are not, turn out to find something that should be improved or changed about it, then we'll do what we can.
Yeah, I mean, as well, we can always change things on after release, right? If after 2 months people are like, the Sanguine SD staff is actually god awful, and we were wrong with the tournament feedback, and we want to change it, then we can change it. But let's not rush into things.
Right. Where have we gone to here? Pickle says, can you utilize the in-game poll system more often by doing surveys to find out what players want instead of only reading suggestions on social media?
Sure.
Is that all you do?
That's
Read social media?
That's all I do is read social media.
I think with the current poll system, we don't have the ability for them to put an entry field in.
We don't, so we can't do.
We
can't
would
do
have to
free
go.
form.
Would you like this? Would you? It would be like another priority poll, I think.
I don't have much experience in this field, but I'm just imagining if we have hundreds of thousands of people filling out forms and adding customizable messages, or at least something that is a bit more than a yes or no, we're going to need some serious staffing to be able to actually filter through all of that.
Then you have to think about the people that aren't going to take it seriously. In terms, like, you should see some of the bug reports I get. They're not bug reports. There's
we kind of.
occasionally I just get flamed out just for the sake of
Yeah.
it.
What is the best bug report you've ever gotten?
The best bug. In terms of funny,
You
or-
define best. You tell me.
I don't know. It's strange. I do get the ones that. I get ones about people that go dry on a boss because they don't get the drop under the drop rate, and then they go, well, clearly my account must be bugged.
That's normal, though. That's normal.
It's
Oh, that would gel my magic.
and then when you get people go, oh, my butler moonwalked out of the fairy ring. Well, actually, if you used fairy rings in more places, you'd see that other things do that too.
Do you know what the
It's
bug
actually
queue is
part of-
full of right now?
Is people now just reporting those two things.
Good job, Rob.
You played yourself.
I'm gonna be sick in the morning, so I don't have to go through them.
Okay.
But yeah, back onto the question. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we take isn't from Reddit. I mean, there's obviously things from Reddit because, well, guess what? It's where a hell of a lot of people go to give feedback. So it would be daft of us to not use it. But we obviously have Twitter, we have the forums, we take a lot of information from in-game, and we talk to people in person. We get players into the office at times. and influencers as well. So there's all different areas that we take feedback from. But can we do more with the poll systems? Yes, I would absolutely love to. We're having a conversation today following on from what we discussed last week in terms of holiday events. And we were thinking about potentially, now this is just my own idea, so I don't know if everyone on the team is on board, so sorry if I'm dropping this one on you guys and you hate me for it. But we were thinking, what about the next holiday event? We actually polled to see if you guys wanted a new holiday event or an alternative instead of a new holiday event. So for example, instead of a new Halloween event, we would do a huge qual update, like one of the bigger things, like I talked about earlier in the Q&A about like a mini game rehaul. And the alternative is that you get an old Halloween event instead. Those are the kind of things that I'd like to see us do more polls of, like, actually, do you want us to do this first or do that first? Similar to priority poll, but we'd obviously have to stipulate the questions and stuff. So
I think that's a really good idea. We've got like 5 Halloween events we've done now. So just you could have like a top pick. Even if you just do that for 1 year, it means that you're definitely saving on resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were thinking, do you want a new holiday event this year? Yes would be obviously yes. No would be no, I don't. I would rather have a quality of life update. And then if you had a quality of life update and had a recycled Halloween event, which one would you prefer? And then have like other 5 options, and whichever was the most popular would be successful.
And
but that can happen in any situation. It doesn't have to be just be holiday events. It could be, anything like a priority poll. So
The only holiday
That's a really
event
good
we reuse is the midsummer, but even then we change the questions and like trivia stuff that's in there.
I don't think it's a bad idea. If we have 5 Halloween events, we could certainly rotate.
I'd like to see the very first ones that were done come back, just to show the difference of kind of like with the amount of effort that we've put into some recently, a comparison to what we used to have when the game started and stuff.
Have we actually left, did we leave last year's in the game as a quest?
It was the
I know
year
I didn't
before
do
that
this
for
year.
Yeah.
Halloween.
But we didn't do it again, did
No.
we?
No.
No, okay.
So we're running out of time very quickly, but there's a few more things I'd really like to get through. So I'm going to jump to this one in specific, which I've asked Mod Lottie to actually help answer. And that is, what is the level of interaction with content you expect when you gauge the success of an update? If 20% of all eligible accounts do a quest, is that good? Or maybe 50%? Do you judge by total player base or just eligible accounts? It's a good question. Don't think we've ever actually had that before. So she gave me a long and a short answer. I'm going to read the long one. To be honest, it's a mix of both. We want to check out the entire player base as a measure of how the game is changing, of how game-changing it is, rather. But we'll also want to look at more specifically at the types of accounts that we're aiming this content at. These targets are set prior to release and are based on previous content releases we deem to have gone well to provide a good comparison for similar content. So there's an example. If we were to look at the engagement for Dragon Slayer 2, we'd start by checking out Monkey Madness 2 and look at how many eligible accounts completed it on release to understand a baseline for what we'd expect to be the uptake to be. We also have to consider Dragon Slayer 2 didn't just bring in a new quest, but also brought in a new profitable boss. As a result, we want to see if there's any impact on questing habits of PVMers. So there's really a lot to it. And this goes on, but that kind of gives you a bit of an idea as to how we kind of measure the success after releasing an update. And I think, do we have a statistic based on the last holiday event, if I can speak? They're usually really, really high, aren't they?
Yeah, I think
I think we had something like 90% completion.
Yeah.
Yeah, of all the people that start it, we normally get at least somewhere like 90 to 95% completion.
complete,
Yeah.
Generally.
So it's
depending
all
on
stuff that we
now.
track.
And we always get information come through from updates. Like I know that with the release of Bryophyta, the Moss Giant boss, Lottie kindly put us together some information for internal use as to how did it compare against Obor when that was released and what differences have happened since Obor was released to this one and why did this one get this number and this one not get that number, for example. And then we obviously use that to kind of help shape how we pitch future updates and stuff.
Right. Lord says, can moss giants found within the wilderness have double drop rate on mossy keys, just like giant keys?
Don't see why not.
They can, whether it's... There is... Am I okay in saying the rates?
I would let Modkira tweet them.
Oh yeah, well, in that case, if you at Modkira, ask him nicely, he might give you them, but there is different rates for different things.
Yep.
right?
Well done,
I
well done
asked
on
if I could give
stating
them
the
out,
obvious.
and
That was such a mod I user response. I
All
love
right.
it.
Okay, next question. Wheeze says, can Cristelia get missing monsters added to her task list, i.e. hill giants, lesser demons? I enjoy doing Wilderness Slayer and would like these added.
I think they should be.
I think it's pretty much a case of if they're in the wilderness, they should probably be on that list.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think there was one very recently, a couple of months ago, very recently, that got added. Was it? Am I right in thinking maybe it was like something as simple as Chaos Druids weren't on the list
Possibly.
and they got added. So they should. Yeah, they should be. I'd like to see that.
Okay.
Where are lesser demons?
Lesser demons.
Because I know there's great demons all over the place, but
There's some. Aren't there some in Revenant Caves?
oh, potentially.
They're probably somewhere else. But I'm not going to try and.
Might be some in the catacombs.
What NPC?
I mean, in the
Lessers.
wilderness.
In the
Oh,
wilderness, yeah.
sorry.
Lesser demons.
Oh, just outside KBD layer, of course.
Ah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Okay.
There we
Thanks,
go.
chat.
I know. Yeah.
I knew that
as
without
well.
looking at the chat.
I think you did.
Can we have a warning when hopping worlds inside a raid?
We could probably have that. So, like, when you try and leave a clan chat, it requires you to actually click twice.
Are you sure?
Well, I
Yeah.
can check whether they're in a raid or not.
So, yeah. So, I think if we were to add the same kind of restriction when trying to leave a clan chat to trying to world hop, just means that if you left click it, it will always bring up the right click menu.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
doable.
Similar one in here somewhere. I'm going to ask it anyways. If I can find it. Nope. Okay. The world hopper in the wilderness. Sometimes if you're looking for a popular PK spot and you're hopping worlds, obviously trying to find people, it can be a little difficult. And after hopping 3, 4, 5, however many times, you eventually get logged out. Can players have a way to be able to see maybe a timer or X amount of logouts within the next X seconds until you get force logged? Can they have a way to actually follow that and avoid that?
It's a good question.
The current limit is 15 hops over X amount of time. I don't know exactly what the time is. And I think this question has been brought to Mod Atlas a few times. It's a system that works and is covered by both games. So I'm not sure whether it's possible at this time to have a bespoke section for old school. It's something that we'll probably need
We'd
a
need
decent
some
discussion
form
with
of-
Atlas.
We need some form of information back from the engine to be able to display the information, basically.
Was it something that was set in place for anti-botting measures?
Probably.
Okay, so we'll have to follow up with those guys as well.
But it's interesting to spin on it instead of the typical "can you increase it?" I like
Yeah.
how it was rather than "can you increase it?" Can we have information so that we know when it's going to happen?
If
I
I
like
can
that.
have information, I can display information.
Yeah,
But
that's
Fantastic.
quite cool.
I think the last request was if it's going to log you out when you tried to hop, just don't hop.
Hmm.
But again, it's the same thing. It's a decent discussion with Mod Atlas is probably necessary for us to get everything.
I think that would stop people complaining because I think that's the most annoying things. Like you could go to hop and you're like, oh, I've been logged out,
hmm
and then you got to wait.
Hmm.
So I guess that would probably be a slightly better option.
Yep. Last couple of questions today. Tyler says, currently the crafting cape bypasses the requirement of a diary to access the guild bank. Could the same thing be done with the agility cape and it be given the access to, the ability to bypass shortcuts so long as the quest isn't required? For example, Calphite layer.
I didn't actually know that the crafting cape bypassed the
Oh, don't admit
requirement to
that.
use the bank.
I'm staying quiet for a reason.
A lot of no's. I will say now.
I think it's the typical response would probably be reducing the requirements of something that's already in game and making it more accessible is typically frowned upon. So I'd imagine that it wouldn't go down very well.
But which one takes longer?
That's also very true.
I mean, if the players want it, maybe.
Yeah.
But it didn't look like they did,
All right.
based on the board.
Now that you're completely right. I did get a couple questions for the art guys, which I'm going to get through, even though we've run out of time. We'll get through these quick. What are the biggest differences after developing and creating Chambers of Xeric compared now to Theatre of Blood?
Go to the next one and ask it to
Okay.
the West. That's easier.
This one isn't so much art related, but it could be. What's one thing that is currently not possible that you would love to see added to the game? I'll give you mine first, maybe to inspire you. Mine is letting monsters run. I think it'd be amazing if we could make a boss that could run.
Yeah.
Was that yours?
Same.
Okay.
Mine isn't art related, but I'd like a 64-bit integer system so we can have a clan system. Hooray.
Woo!
I think I say that nearly all the time.
That's not fair. I was going to say clan system.
2-on system. I don't know in terms of feasibility. It might be possible. Oh,
sorry,
go on,
just
you're gonna
to
interrupt
change.
me, it's fine.
Sorry, I'm just going to say this is now not saying
Interrupting.
impossible, because that's not impossible.
It's
In
like
fact, I
currently
don't even
it
know if
doesn't
mine's
exist.
impossible.
Currently, it is impossible.
Okay. With current changes, impossible. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, with current things in mind, it's not possible, but I would love to see the different areas of the game that we focus on, like high-end content. So, for example, Chambers of Xeric and the upcoming Theatre of Blood. I would love for there to be scaled versions of those, depending on what combat level you were when you entered. So that if you wanted to go in as a group of level 70s, you could go in as a group of 70s and you would get loot that would adjust based on the overall combat level of the group and the time that you completed it, so that all content in the game is accessible by everyone, but you're rewarded more based on the level that you have.
That sounds big.
Doesn't
Yeah.
that punish people for levelling up?
Well, no, not if you don't. If you, for example, if you went at like level 70, you wouldn't have access to anything other than, I don't know, if you were at the same table as like a moss giant or a fire giant. So you'd still get the normal loot that you would at that level. You'd just be able to experience the actual thing.
Chat's not a fan.
So, but no, they probably wouldn't be. But it'd be cool.
In fact, they'd like to see you fired.
Yeah, it's
Done
fine.
it again.
I wouldn't like that.
I feel that coming up to 6:05, the distribution of time you've had is unreasonable for your answer. So we should move to Connor.
Sorry about that. Yeah, moving on.
I stopped roasting Aiza.
I honestly don't care. I'm used to it now, so it's fine.
I'd say
Hire back.
a Z buffer.
Say again, sorry.
A Z buffer.
I have no idea.
Oh,
what that
the
means.
hot
Would
potato.
you like to describe
Only
that
we know about.
in 10 seconds or less? Time.
Just sometimes, basically, when we make a model, we have to like label each poly separately. Where am I? There we are. And it's just a massive waste of time. If we could, obviously, it would change it. Rendering would be better. That's basically it.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, nice.
Things that are in front would be in front instead of looking sometimes a bit glitchy.
Should I reword yours to say what's one thing you've learned after Chambers of Xeric that you've now been able to use?
Punctuating animations instead of just creating equal frame lengths and making it very smooth, just so everything moves smoothly. It's much better to use less frames with more punchy movements and actually regulate the speed of those frames to give a sense of acceleration and deceleration throughout an animation.
Do you think if you took one of your maybe proudest creations at the time from Chambers of Xeric and then put it up against something from Theatre of Blood, there'd be a really noticeable difference?
If you look at that thing just feels like a carnival float the way it moves. It's just really bad. It does. You can just imagine that going down the street, can't you? But now the stuff feels like it's actually got some real life to it.
Yeah.
So I much prefer, and that's the way it always is with your artwork. Year upon year, you'll just look back at the stuff you did last year and just go, it's so much better. Or at least you should be doing that anyway.
Right. It is a noticeable improvement.
It would be pretty horrible to look back at your old work and be like, oh,
Yeah, I'm
well,
getting
so
worse.
bad.
It's the same with code. You look back
Sure.
at code that you've done in the past, it's like, well, why did I do it that way? That was stupid.
I can imagine it's the same with pretty much anything,
Yeah.
provided you're consistent and try hard at it, which means that Mod Maz is also trying hard and improving with her work as well. So it's good.
All right. Okay, that's going to conclude our Q&A. We've gone a little past 6.
Can we get clapped out? We've never had that
Yes.
Oh my
Or
god.
cheer,
Wow.
or like.
Hey, okay.
before. No, you don't clap.
I clapped. That was supposed to wait until after the outro, but now I'm doing the outro. So thanks for watching, guys. We will see you again next week.
Well, you might not see me.
That feels good.
Thanks.